Alright. Hello. I'm making this as a bit of a follow-up to my previous video that I did regarding the Mayflash adapter for playing a Nintendo 64 controller through USB. Mostly as a matter of addressing the different updates that currently exist for the controller, mainly because there are many things that have been corrected with the Mayflash adapter, which I would say have been absolutely necessary over time. But I would say I have found that there is a dividing line in terms of what has been a good update versus what has not been a good update. So, from what I've been able to tell from looking at it, is the past two updates for the firmware of the Mayflash N64 USB adapter. They added in a functionality which I and many others thought was missing, which was the ability to open up the menu for the NSO Online Nintendo 64 app, which on an ordinary Switch controller would just be a matter of pressing a minus button, but there's no minus button on the Nintendo 64 controller, so there's no way you could do that without doing a little bit of a workaround, as you might have seen in my last video. However, they added in an update which allows you to open up any of these sorts of menus by making the minus button essentially activate with the use of pressing the start button and the Z button simultaneously on the Nintendo 64 controller, like so. And that is nice. It's very useful because with this you can access stuff like save states, or the suspend points as they call them. You can select other games within the app, which can be very nice if there's probably going to be plenty of points where maybe you're playing a game and you just want to get through one section and you want to use a save state or something. The problem with this update, though, is that, and I'm going to demonstrate this with Star Fox because I would say it demonstrates this issue most dramatically. The problem is that it seems to introduce a little bit of lag into the Z button. Now, I could sometimes deal with a little bit of lag input if I can still generally play the game. However, I've found that the lag is detrimental to the way I am able to play some Nintendo 64 games. Now, depending on your sensitivity to this sort of thing, you might not notice it, but I noticed it in particular when playing Star Fox 64. And I will go ahead and demonstrate here why. So, if you don't know, when it comes to Star Fox 64, the idea is that your ship can kind of get itself oriented to move more quickly in one direction or the other by pressing either the L or the R button. So, R button, Z button. I misspoke before, but you get what I mean. So to bank left, Z, R, and okay, I'm doing that, fair enough, that's easy enough. But another thing to how this game controls is that it isn't just a thing that has you go left, right a little bit more. You can also activate a barrel roll by double tapping those buttons. So you do that, do a barrel roll to the right, you do that. You're kind of seeing this. The Z button, because it seems to have a little bit of an input lag, does not always register the quick double press like it ought to. It seems to have an easier time if you hit it in just the right way, but it's all the more dramatic to see when you could see something where it's like, if I just rapidly hit the R button, the barrel roll goes off fine. Whenever I rapidly hit the Z button, it kind of hesitates a little bit. It seems to accept the input for just a brief moment of time, and maybe sometimes, depending on how I'm holding it, it'll sometimes manage to register that double hit. But that lag introduces just enough uncertainty that it doesn't always hit like it's supposed to. And you can kind of train your fingers to be able to pull that off a bit more regularly by hitting the Z button in such a fashion that it's like, okay, I could somewhat more reliably pull off this double tap. The thing is, though, for me, when it comes to something like this adapter, when the entire point of the experience is to be like, okay, unlike playing with a normal Switch controller, I don't have to think about what my fingers are doing. I don't have to retrain the way that I think about how I play the game. If I have to start thinking, well, okay, whenever before I've been able to play this game, I don't have to think about it. I don't have to think about how I'm pressing the button. Well, thinking about it becomes that much more difficult. And it can become somewhat of an issue, especially in a game like, say, Star Fox, where everything is going to be built around twitch reflexes. You have to be acting immediately. And it's like, oh, maybe you want to do something like, oh, you want to really zip across the screen real fast. And maybe most of the time, you will be able to pull it off in such a fashion that, okay, I remember how to do this so that I can do it, correctly. But that's not exactly something you want to always be doing when, this is something that should just be muscle memory. It's very easy to pull off, and instead you might find yourself going, I'm trying to go off to the left right away, but it's not letting me. And so with this, I believe it kind of enters into a bit of an issue of, well, what do you want out of your adapter? Do you want it to better have a response to how you're acting in the moment? Or do you really feel like you need some of these quality of life features that come from having this framework of the NSO emulator? And for me, I actually tried swapping out the firmware on the Mayflash adapter. And after playing around with an update that happened beforehand, I honestly feel like I would prefer to have it so that I don't have to adjust my muscle memory. As nice as this is, I can get around this by getting another controller and doing kind of the weird do-si-do like I demonstrated in my previous video. It's inconvenient, but if I ever really do need to do that, I figure it can't be any more of an effort compared to, say, going up to the TV, turning off the console, and swapping around a cartridge. At least when it comes to game selection. When it comes to the suspend point, maybe there will be some points when I play a game where I would want to use those, but generally speaking, I think I'm fine enough being able to play a Nintendo 64 game without need of those. Maybe I'll change my mind at some point, but in the meantime, being able to just play the controller without thinking about it is what's most important to me. Now, if you're someone like me who has that kind of issue, obviously you're going to need to be able to switch around the firmware. I didn't show it in the last video because I thought it was simple enough. But I figure as long as I'm making this little addendum to my last video, I'll go ahead and demonstrate how you can easily do that. So I will unplug the adapter. The switch is going to act up a little bit because I unplugged the controller. So just to kind of, I guess, demonstrate, we can pretend that we are looking at this for the first time. Like, okay, let's say, oh, Google Mayflash. There's a thing right here. And we can go immediately to firmware, but maybe let's pretend you just want to click onto the main site for whatever reason. Open it up. Support, firmware, USB adapters. And this version, 1.08.18, was the update which introduced the ability to have a minus input, allowing you to open up that menu with the list of commands to game selection, save states, and all that. And that functionality continues on into what is called 1.01.19. I believe that second digit is done in error because it registers as a 1.08.19 whenever I've done it. In any case, this says that it's fixed analog stick input lag. I haven't really noticed analog input lag myself when playing the older versions, but maybe some people would notice that. That might be something else to consider when you are making, possibly making your own purchase and deciding what you update the firmware to. So you could click that to download. Also click in here to see, oh, what does it fix? And it includes instructions on how to do it. But so we've got, here is the version that I prefer. So what you do, double click on that. This little window will open. And once that's open, you take your adapter, hold down the home button, which is the middle button, and you plug it into a USB port on your computer. And it should eventually appear. Yep. Sometimes I've, a couple of times when I tried doing this, it took a little while for it to update. Or rather for it to register. Sometimes I just reopen the program. And we will downgrade to this version. Just wait for the little bar to go. Oh, and yeah, you release the home button after it registers the device version, by the way. And update and verify, okay. And then we can click that. And with this update, unplug from the computer, plug into our switch, and it is on and should be recognized as soon as we press the buttons. Yep, recognizes it as a USB controller, and it works. And the Z button goes as fast as I like it. And we can demonstrate in just a moment. You can see I can rapidly tap the R button and I get a barrel roll. Rapidly tap the Z button and I get a barrel roll. Now, Unfortunately, it doesn't have the minus functionality anymore, but like I said, I found that something that is worth losing if it means I can play this without having to think about how I'm playing the game. So, from what I understand, at least from looking at other people talking about this, the reason that the lag to the Z button is happening is it has to do with how the adapter is trying to listen to see if the Z and start button are being pressed to have that minus function. And so it might be delaying the Z input for whatever reason to need to listen to that and before putting it into the system. Personally, I'm kind of hoping that if anything, at some point they will update this adapter to have this functionality without inducing the lag, or if they can't do it, I would much rather that they find some way to put it into another button combo. Like for me, like on the adapter, besides the home button, there are these two turbo buttons. I have never touched these. Maybe there are some people who really feel the need to use a turbo button. But I would love it if I could just use that for this instead. Like, maybe pressing both buttons at the same time could activate it. I mean, it's like, I don't think these even work. Like, yeah, like, I'm pressing it, it's registering as a charge, as, like holding the button. Oh, now it's holding. Yeah. It's like, okay, yeah, I mean, maybe there's someone who wants to use a rapid fire. But not me. You can turn off now. Man, I can't even get that. Okay, there we go. I got it to turn off. Okay. So anyway, I've made my point. Just to make sure, double checking what that version was. 1.08.16 is the latest version before the minus button update. So I hope this helps. If you are trying to figure out how to possibly use your Mayflash, or if you're perhaps someone who's still in the process of deciding whether or not you're going to buy a Mayflash, at the moment I would still say that it is about the best thing you can do until you can get an actual Nintendo 64 Switch controller. Unfortunately, that's probably going to be a while because, well, Nintendo is kind of perpetually out of stock of it. I mean, apparently they have new stock every couple of weeks, but it just sells out so fast. But yeah, until that gets more available, until the official product is more available, I'd say the Mayflash is still the best option that you would possibly have. Just, keep an eye out on the firmware and think about what really matters the most to you in terms of wanting to use this style of controller. Yeah. Have a good night.